Hey everyone, welcome to Grounded Roots Healing. My name is Jason and I'm an alchemist, and I sporadically make videos on YouTube. Now I'm sitting here waiting for my son to finish Muay Thai, which he absolutely loves and is quite good at, and has been practicing for years. I wish I could go do that, but my body doesn't seem to want to cooperate. But I recently had a download, so I feel a lot better than I did in my previous videos. I still am not going to be doing this regularly, as far as I can tell. Just whenever my intuition hits or I have a spare minute and I have something that I'd like to talk about. So what I got the download about was in regards to how the new Earth split happens, which was really interesting to me. I've always been wondering exactly how this works. You hear a lot of things on the internet, people purporting to claim to know how it works. And I'm sure they're right at varying levels of this matrix that we live in, or simulation, but the most comprehensive way that I've heard it described, or at least I've gotten it downloaded in varying bits into this comprehensive understanding of what's going to happen on the 3D side of things. I mean, it won't be 3D by the time yes it will. It won't be third frequency by the time we turn this on, but it's still a three-dimensional, as in depth, width, height, occurrence, the Earth. So that's cryptic and makes not much sense. So let me explain. So a while back, I had gotten the information, I believe it was mostly through R.J. Spina, which made sense to me, on how the pyramids work. So for those who are unaware, there are naturally higher vibrational energy sites on the planet. They just occur in these locations, very specific locations. They're all over the place. There's lots of them. Some are stronger than others, and the Giza pyramids were built on top of one of these sites, on purpose, of course. I believe it was, no, I know it was, there was a sacred spring that bubbled up out of the ground, which is often how this happens, that just naturally has a higher energy than the environment around it. So the ancients, in knowing that this was a higher energy environment, essentially built an amplifier on top of this spring to focus that energy from a big base to a small point and create a bubble of sorts. So a higher vibrational bubble. They're taking that natural energy, focusing it, amplifying it, and projecting it out from the pyramid to create a bubble or an area that was higher vibrational. So anyone dwelling inside that bubble around the pyramids would see and would naturally start to raise their vibration and see higher vibrational entities, civilizations, beings, etc., etc. They built these with like I said, on top of a spring. Then they had crystals placed on top of that, calcite. Then there's very specific types of stones that were conductive on the inside, and then a insulative stone on the outside, and then a pyramidon on the peak. So it's clearly an amplifier. In the inside of these things, they have sarcophagi, they call them, but they're not. They're healing chambers. These big what looked like coffins, giant coffins made out of one piece of, I think it's basalt normally, probably granite, which is absolutely impossible to do, let alone get it in there, but to construct it in one piece is insane. But that's for the vibrational properties of that stone, and they had methods. So the people would go inside these boxes, lay down, get the lid closed upon them, and then the energy from the pyramid would be funneled into their bodies, raising their vibration and healing them. This is what the purpose of them was. So this information, this idea, these abilities to lift massive stones and work them came from the Atlanteans, as well as other civilizations that no longer exist. So they made these bubbles, these high vibrational bubbles. And if you go around the world, you might notice that there's a lot of pyramids. This is a naturally focusing structure. This is the point of them. Amplify that energy, concentrate it to one point. And also, you'll notice that these pyramids are placed in random places, not random at all, but in places on a grid. So, around the planet, there are 144,000 of these higher vibrational locations. I know of at least 4 in my immediate area. They're very high. There's nothing obviously significant about them. One of them has a shrine built around it by the Catholic Church. It's a bubbling spring that comes up out of the ground in the middle of nowhere, and I could feel the energy. So this is a grid. They're all over the place. What we're trying to do as light workers, it's not trying, we're doing, is turning on the grid system so that all of these points are in communication with each other, and when they're on and elevated to a high enough level, the entire system will turn on. So like I said, in Egypt, this pyramid served to make a energetic bubble, and the fact they used the obelisks, which were one piece of granite as well. Why would you make a 1,200 ton one piece structure if it was just for appearances? It's functional. The energy could get projected to these obelisks, which would extend the size of the bubble away from the pyramids. So they built them all over the place, and when this grid turns on, the entire planet has that same property. The energy, this bubble that I described around the Giza pyramids, will be encompassing the entire planet. And like I said, as light workers, our main purpose, or at least for me personally, is to take the information from these sites and bring it to other sites. So I can naturally detect these sites. And when there's a new site that I've never been to, I can feel it. I can feel it as we approach it. The energy's different than all the other sites that I've been to. I spend some time here, maybe I drink some of the spring water, and I essentially download the information from that site into my vessel. Then I take it back and I place it at other sites. And I've noticed that if I go back to these sites, I don't notice them as much. I've integrated that energy, I've integrated that information into my body, and I've taken it around to other places to activate this grid. It's a grid worker. This is one of my roles, and there are many of us. Possibly 144,000. I'm not sure, though. So this is going to happen. This is part of the story, this simulation, this movie that we're in. And my entire life has been built around this, and I didn't even realize it till this moment. I've been going around the world as a geologist in remote locations and being exposed to these higher vibrational locations and bringing it back to my country. Now, other people are doing the same thing. When we went to Chichen Itza, this was extremely powerful location. I suspect, it blew my mind. I was in the early stages of awakening, and it was a lot for my physical vessel to handle. Now, I'd be curious to go back and see what the difference is now that I've integrated and grounded that energy. And what I've done is taken the energy from Chichen Itza and other sacred sites and brought it back to my home place. Now, they're not all created equal. Some sites are stronger than others. This would be why there was bigger pyramids built in certain places and nothing in others. And then it brings you to this 144,000 number is very interesting and tied into everything. If you total up the frequency of each of the chakras, that's the frequency, the total works out to 144,000. These beings that we refer to as aliens are operating above that Hertz level. So, in order for this carbon-based vessel, the maximum amount of hertz we can hold is 144,000. If we've attuned all of our chakras, we can max out there. So our DNA is changing in order to be able to hold more of this. When you go, these entities, these we call aliens, species, exist in 218 hertz and above. So we need to change our bodies in order to be able to hold more of this light. And as you raise your frequency and as you hold more of this light, you will start to see what has always been around you. And there's a lot of things that are right here. You'll get glimpses of them as you start to raise your vibration and see weird things, but you ain't seen nothing yet until you start, when you start integrating all of these and clearing out all this old damage in your physical vessel and the trauma and rewiring your brain patterns and becoming Christ-like. It gets wilder and wilder as you go up until at one point we turn on the planet. Then everyone on it is at 144 or higher. Or you can't stay here. You literally explode. In fact, that's what it felt like when I went to Chichen Itza. So I just thought that was really cool. It's a really cool story. And it really starts to make sense about why I did what I did and where I went in my life and why and how I've been integrating. And I've always been doing this and I didn't know. It's really, really amazing. And I hope there are others like me, these grid workers. There's groups of them, and there's people with funds, and there's people with power. And I suspect I should be going to other locations to ground this stuff in and bring it back. And also, like I've said before, there are locations around here. I would really like to be the caretaker of one of these. But that requires funds. So I'm waiting for my soul tribe. The people who have an archetype that is the same as mine and are supposed to go around this world and ground this stuff in for the sake of humanity. What a cool story. I couldn't have wrote a more interesting story for the way my brain works. And of course that's on purpose. This is all a movie after all. Like, as I'm describing how this is going to go nuts and bolts. But the reality is this has all been written. And another cool thing that I thought about was that a lot of these locations They were built with the knowledge that we would get to this point at some time. So they were built with the assistance of higher vibrational entities. Societies were assisted, given certain technologies. And they built these structures on top of these high energy sites because they knew at some point we would be tying all these grids, this grid together, the ley lines, turning on the planet, essentially. Now, what happens to the people who choose not to make it? From what I've been told, there's a copy. So there's a planet that looks a lot like it does now. And if you choose to go on the path of ascension, you get to stay on the actual planet, and then the copy, the other people who haven't made the cut, let's say, or chose not to, they get to live out the rest of their existence on that copy. And then when you wake up on the other side, you'll know what happened. I still don't really believe in free will, so I know that that's all been planned as well. It's what they wanted to experience. So it may be difficult if we get to this point and there's close family members that you have that have chosen not to go. That would be very difficult. And that is something that you've done in order to face that karma yourself. So you guys both agreed to that. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. I don't know how far away this is, and I don't know. It's going to be a really cool story. I just know that much. So that's where I'll leave it. Like I always say, I hope this video finds you well, and I love you all.